Midlife Crisis Journal, Day 10. Easily the nicest day out. Wow. It's going to get too hot today, probably. Day 10. Today's tip. I made a list of tips and decided in advance which one, so I'll just grab the first one I think of. If you have a walk-in closet in your house, that's an extra room. That's the tip. So you don't say anything with that room. Some people even turn that room into a nursery. We did that. If you do that, you got to make sure you have like a smoke detector and proper like air conditioning in the room. So either like, a vent, you gotta have heat in there. Although you're more likely to need the air conditioning than the heat, because most likely with the closet, the chances that the room gets too cold for a nursery are lower than the chance to get too hot. So yeah, use a walk-in closet to be whatever you want. To just make a closet and just fill it up with clothes. In fact, if you want to discourage from having too much stuff in a closet, don't use that as a closet, like a wardrobe. All right. I'm Ryan. This is Midlife Crisis Journal, Day 10. Today I want to talk a little bit about, well, to the extent that life purpose comes from just filling in the gaps that your parents may have left or your upbringing may have left. And whether or not that's a worthwhile goal. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my situation, where so far I figured out that I think my filling in for my parents type motivations might be, and go a bit from there. So when I've been doing a lot of the videos on whether it's like inner child work, or there's another video talking about like life's purpose, it goes back to childhood a lot, and things that either, well, obviously inner child work goes back to childhood. Big surprise there. Your inner child is not some other child you've just adopted throughout your life. So I think this story kind of begins, the best way to tell it kind of starts with my mom's story a little bit. So about my mom's upbringing, I'll first say my dad's upbringing, he grew up in a military family. My grandfather was in the Navy for 20 years. He was one of 6 kids. They were moving around a lot. It was pretty stable. My mom, on the other hand, had not so great of an upbringing. Her dad was a bit of a dope. In fact, her mom, my grandmother said that one of her biggest mistake in life was she fell for a dope. So what he did, well, for one, he left when she was like 13 or so. But there's one story, there's at one point where they were supposed to move down to Florida. And he had the wise idea to not pay to move her, probably thinking that, well, they're going to move the stuff down there anyway. If we go down there, if I don't pay him, what's he going to do? Not give the stuff for his 2 daughters? And yeah, that's what the movers did. So what was supposed to be a move down to Florida, my mom, who was probably, I think, like 11 at the time or so, all her stuff was gone, all her belongings, just, that was it. Like, I think they even lived on a boat for a little bit. Like, I remember growing up, hearing where all my parents lived growing up. I thought it was cool at the time, hearing lived on a boat, but I don't know that the story was necessarily that positive in retrospect. So he left my grandmother when my mom was about 14, and he basically left her with just a convenience store and some cash in the register, and that was it. So my mom's childhood involved, or the rest of her teenage years involved her, one, helping out at her mom's convenience store quite a bit, and 2, whenever she came home school, the house was empty. And my mom vowed to never let her kids come home to an empty house. And she was, well, that's obviously a noble pursuit if you actually know where it comes from. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And so she was able to follow through on that. And you could say that she accomplished her goal almost too well. I never came home to an empty home. Never. To the point of where it was almost suffocating, to be honest. Not to say I want to come home to an empty home per se, but she was always around. She didn't really have many friends. She's not the kind of person that has friends. Very self-conscious. Self-conscious that part of the reason I'm happy doing this anonymously is because if this story were being told, then there are bugs in my kid. Then she would probably not talk to me for a long time, which probably isn't a good thing. Although, I'm not going to talk to her every day or anything like that. I'm probably going to talk to her in about a week and a half. But very self-conscious. Part of it probably came from her background, being self-conscious about it, being a little bit too much responsibility early in life, worrying she was being judged by my dad's family. They started dating in college, so somewhat formative years still, but yeah, very easily embarrassed by things like that she shouldn't be embarrassed by, things that are not really a reflection of her. She treats like they are. So she never really had friends. She was very easy. If she was embarrassed by a friend, or she thought a friend thought less than highly of her, she would just kind of doubt. She'd be fine being done with them forever. And then this is, growing up, there was also a story where, I think I was probably a teenager at this point, but we were visiting my relatives, my dad's brother and his family, one of his 3 brothers. And at one point, my uncle makes a comment that my job, which was working at the Home Depot at the time, was not a real job. And he was right, that was not a real job. I was a parking lot attendant. I would take hour lunches, no one would notice. I would go walk a half hour away to get a cart for Home Depot that was on the side of the highway, bring it back. It wasn't a real job. No real responsibility. But when he said that, my mom, because I'm her son, took offense to that, actually started insulting my uncle and saying that his job, where he was a store manager at Kmart out of college, was also not a real job. He's claiming that I worked in retail just like he did. And this is also, I would not have even argued with my uncle, much less asked my mom to defend this. And let's just say this led to a rift where my mom was actually perfectly willing to never talk to my dad's brother again, even put the whole family relationship on hold, because she was, because of saying that my Home Depot job was a joke. It took a bit before we started seeing them again, months actually. So let's just say that while my mom was also home all the time, she was also not very socially limber. And we never, as a result, we being me, really especially me, I guess maybe my sisters did sometimes, but our house was never the house that we hung out with friends. If I wanted to hang out at my house with friends, well, my mom would offer. That didn't really carry the way too much, but the setup would be something like we would be sitting, I would maybe hang out with my friends in the living room. Then you'd have the fake doors. No, it'd be the family room and living room being separate rooms, touching each other. When they touch each other, you have those fake doors between them. I'd say, she would say oh, hang out in the family room, and then we'll just close the doors, and then they would be in the living room, just there. we didn't have a finished basement or anything like that. So we're gonna play it, and it'd be one thing like that's not that bad to be near family members, but it's just awkward. Just my family was just awkward socially. It was funny compared to like one of my other friends who would get angry if you knocked on their door or rang the doorbell instead of just walking in. Remember one day, my friend, his name is Jeff, he's one of my best high school friends. I thought he was at his house and I thought he was avoiding me, so I went to his house and he wasn't home. But I still asked his I went there, so his parents were just there. Really bad night. I just showed up. I was like, "Hey, is Jeff here?" His mom's like, "I don't know. Check the kitchen." I'm just, yeah, it's funny because actually my friend Jeff is probably my friend that I've connected the most on a midlife crisising type thing. So we're handling it very different ways. He's single and he's like doing things like working from home in Europe and stuff. Meanwhile, I got the 3 kids here. So it's very, very different. But anyway, so my formative years came from being that social awkwardness was very impactful for me. Now, I don't mean to, again, disparage my parents too much because I had a very good upbringing, very good childhood. They were provided a lot of stability. It was a loving house. They put the needs of the kids first, where they knew what the needs of the kids were. That there was no threat of abuse, obviously none in the house, and none from anyone that might have been around the family. So there are a lot of very important things that were not a concern in my house. The biggest problem we had was that it was kind of a socially awkward family, I guess. And not weird as in we were socially awkward because we're the family from the Devil's Rejects or something. It was just we just didn't know how to be outgoing and have fun. So when I got a friend group in high school where we would do things like to actually hang out a lot, I kind of treasured that, cherished it, and probably more than was even reasonable. I had a group of 10 friends or so, and I was usually the one. There's someone has to be a scenario friend group anyway. Someone has to be the one to organize things sometimes. Say hey, let's go see a movie. Hey, let's go this or that. That was usually me. And even into adulthood, I did that quite a bit. Although I was probably the last to move. We all left our hometown. Eventually, I was and I don't know if I was the last one, but I was the last one to leave the area we were in. I moved out, but I didn't. I moved half an hour away, and then 2 years later, moved 3 hours away, which is where I am now. So, yeah, that's. So I found with doing a lot of inner child work that I really want to, for my kids and for my inner child, be what my parents were lacking, which was the cool parent kind of person who could host whether it's parties or get-togethers or just be a place for kids to just stop over, go downstairs into the basement and just find one of our kids' friends is over and not even batting an eye. That type of environment is one that I would love to create for my kids. And that sounds great and all, right? I don't think I should not do that. But when I take a step back, the idea that such a big part of what I want to accomplish in life is just doing the thing that my parents didn't do, it seems a little petty, doesn't it? If that's all things are, I understand that being a good thing if, you're growing up in times where your parents are able to only cover 25% of the things they need to be doing. But we're talking about my parents probably covered 75, 80%, and so it leaves very little for me to do there. So I think I don't know, it feels like I can't turn that. I'm not going to start a foundation for kids with awkward families. Like, I don't know. And to be fair too, like being that type of parent for my kids is not just about like having a house, but it's also about being like it's about how you are as a person too, both your relationship with your kids and how just comfortable you are. So I want my kids to be confident, and I want them to feel comfortable. I think my wife and I are doing a very good job of doing that too. And it's important to try and recapture things, obviously, from your parents that they will not lose that. Sometimes I have thought about whether or not I become too much of my kids are kind of young, but I have wondered sometimes if I've been too much of a friend to them in some moments. Like my 8-year-old daughter, she's a reader. And she'll like give me her books to read, be like, Dad, you should read this. This is really funny. And she doesn't like quite realize that. I mean, to be fair, I would also, some of those parts are pretty funny. She's talking about like the books like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Big Nate, I forgot the name of the one with the cat. But yeah, we'll see as we get older if they need me to be a little bit more paternal as opposed to playing with them, having fun with them. I hope not. I hope I'm doing a good job at that. I hope that my kid's acting like I'm kind of a friend. It just might seem a little strange because that's not something I really got to see too much. Whenever I hear a friend, like an adult friend, saying they'll like play some sort of a game, whether a video game or board game or whatever, with parents and like, or with a dad, almost as if the dad is like, could just be step over as an extra player when you're playing a game with your friends. That always seems strange to me because, again, that never really happened for me. But I think they're just, I don't know, it comes back to one thing I've talked about a lot through this journal is the idea of filling the gaps with my parents is still something that motivates me, but isn't so significant of a task that I feel like I gotta wake up early to do it. I mean, I'm excited in the morning to go do that. I feel like I'm doing what I need to do that as it is. Like, unless it comes down to making like, just finding a way to make a little bit more money. But again, I don't know that, maybe there's a way to make money that's tied into that, but it doesn't seem like that's enough for a life's task, just to fill in the blind spots of your parents. But, and it may be for some people, but just not for me. The blind spot isn't big enough. I thought about this a bit yesterday when I was mowing the lawn, so that's why my seems a little bit more put together. That might be why. This was probably a little bit longer. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this was day 10 now. It's day 10 in the books. It's actually kind of sunny. I don't want to get sunburned, so I'm going to wrap it up. I'm on doxy, so I might be risking sunburn. I had tick bites. So, all right.